Hi, everyone, from me, Brent Graham, and welcome to the Handicap Rugby Chat That Matters. It's Thursday night, 9 o'clock. We've got a big weekend of rugby ahead. We've got the Rugby Championships, New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, Argentina. I'm still licking my wounds from last weekend, I can tell you. It was a really, really tough one. In fact, if you watched the Handicap show last week, my question to you is, what the hell are you doing back here? Because we didn't have a very good week, certainly as far as the Rugby Championships went. But I've got three panelists tonight to hopefully find us a few winners. We're also going to be talking a bit of under-20 Rugby World Championships. It's the final round of matches, final playoff stages tomorrow. We're going to be catching up with Alan on that. But let's introduce the guests first of all. And starting off with At the Crow Tips on the top of your screen there. Chris, great to have you back on the show. You coming to us live from the UK, are you?
That's right, yes. No longer in Poland, down in Surrey in the UK. Started a new role here, down with my mates again, having DMC English conversations again, so it's great. Loving it. Yeah, it's good to be back. And unfortunately, I'm sorry about last week, Brent, but I had a nice week, so I'm enjoying myself at the moment. And so looking forward to this weekend as well.
Nothing wrong. Pleased to have someone who's full of confidence. And then to the bottom of the screen there, Alan Schultz at Jackal for Life. Alan, we'll talk a bit about under-20s later, but Rugby Championship as well. You're looking forward to it? Can we even persuade you maybe to have a bet or two on the games?
I think for sure. I'm looking forward to whoever tries to tackle Etzebeth first up with his with the bad news he had this week. I think he's going to come out firing. They might have to restrain him. They might have to restrain him during the haka even. So yeah, I think woe betide anyone who gets in his way on Saturday. So I'm really looking forward to bringing them back down to size after they thought they were the world champions for beating Argentina last week.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that game in just a second. I just hope the haka is a lot shorter than the under-20 version that they've been showing us. And then at the bottom of the screen, I'm never quite sure where in the world this guy is. First of all, it was great to meet you last week, Harry, while you were in South Africa. I thought you were still hanging around, only to find out you were in London, and now you're back in Texas. Great to have you on the show, man.
No, I'm just barely alive after surviving the Loftus Abattoir, the world's largest barbecue, the braai that never ended. I was convinced by my neighbors from Potchefstroom to drink a brandy Coke every time the Bucks scored a try, which was probably going to be, 3 or 4? No, it went on and on and on. So, yeah, at some point I was worried about those flyovers too. They looked very, very close.
I must say, for in the modern culture of safety and that, I was quite surprised to see those flyovers. I had to say they looked awfully close there. But overall, your experience of Loftus and Pretoria and just Johannesburg in general while you were up here?
Brilliant. I mean, obviously, it's a big difference between Josie and Pretoria, but I really enjoyed everything. I mean, the Loftus experience was amazing. Could not expect anything better. And then, your town was great. Thanks for having me over to one of your places to eat. And everyone was very friendly and had a great time.
Excellent. Well, let's get stuck into the rugby. I bought the outright betting for the Rugby Championship down below. I can tell you New Zealand firm slightly into 5-10. South Africa actually quite stable despite the big win at 19-10. You've got Australia 11-1 and Argentina out to 80-1. I can tell you I took Australia at 13-2, but I wouldn't back them at 11-1 even with your money after what I saw last week. That was an absolute disaster. And Harry, let's start with you on the game. I'm going to bring the handicap up here first of all. We got, and this one I can tell you, Harry, quite interesting betting moves. It was 11.5. New Zealand were made 11.5 point favourites early in the week. I must say myself and everyone else on the Good for the Game forum absolutely jumped on the plus 11.5. That has now come on to 6.5, and we got a total points line of 49.5. Now, I saw you already made a few comments on this on Twitter, and I'll just briefly bring this tweet up. I won't keep it up because it's quite small, but you can perhaps, in your answer, just give us an idea what this is all about, and then guys can obviously find you on Twitter.
So preceding 8 matches between these two great powers, it's kind of just split between moments. A couple of moments in the match have given the win, so you can almost say it's even going in. The form's even. At home, you would say, of course, normally Eden Park. This is kind of different. It's Mount Smart, which is a league kind of smaller. I think the Moana Pacifica plays there. It's not really. It's giving away some home advantage, maybe. I would say that when I look at this, it looks like the All Blacks should win by 2-4, mostly because of the goal kicking edge. I don't think it's going to be. I think that line is a little bit too generous. Because of the pack superiority and the bench edge the Boks should have. But the problem is, I think going into 60 minutes, it might be a little bit too far a stretch for the Bomb Squad to reel in, because you've got Cheston Colby taking shots at goal. If he starts missing, then Faf from the left or from far, and then you have Damian Villensa, who's not a recognized kicker. If Marty Lubbock has to come in and make that edge, and now you're all, white knuckle time. So I think that's the edge they have, an 80% kicker versus a 70% kicker, basically, which in Test rugby is usually worth about 6 points, maybe 9 points. I do think, though, on the depth of forward pack with Whitelock out, Scooter Barrett stuck into locks, and then you have Sneeman, and you have Mostert and DT acting as a lock. It's just a superiority of locks, and I think the scrum is going to matter quite a bit with Mathieu Renal, the referee, never been shy to award penalties at a scrum. And he also does it quickly. He doesn't talk to the touchies. He doesn't care about this bind, that bind. He just wants to see who's going forward. So for all of his faults, Renal is a good scrum ref. The line speed on defense, I think, is going to be difficult for the All Blacks to see, because they haven't played Super Rugby and they haven't seen that from the Australian teams. Also, they just haven't seen quite a mongrel pack as this one in a while. So I would think that the shock of that will keep the score low. The overall points is just exactly right. When you go back in time and look at how these teams play, I wouldn't even mess around with 49.5 on that one. But I'm leaning towards the Boks on that line. I just think that there's another level of defense coming at the All Blacks that they haven't seen in a while. The decision-making, the quickness has to come up. I almost think that the Argentina game was more of a fake result than the Wallaby win, because Argentina always starts really badly in their first match, always. They had no one to play. Didn't even play Uruguay or someone to warm up at all. They had no similarity to Super Rugby or URC, so they just come in really cold. Whereas the win over Australia was a real thing. That was a hybrid B side beating a pretty well seasoned big pack from Australia.
Yeah, good point there. I mean, the way Eddie was talking before that Australia game, they were certainly coming up to win that one. Just welcome to all the guys in the live chat. Sorry, I haven't been bringing up the comments yet. I've got terrible Wi-Fi at the moment, and it's as a result of all the load shedding we've got here again in South Africa. So if I do drop off at any point, Chris will take over. And to add to that, I can tell you I haven't had water for 3 days, but that's another story entirely. Johan Esthuizen says All Blacks 1-12. And Alan, let me bring you in there now. Are we looking at a tight test match here? Are we looking at one of the... I mean, last week, I thought we were in for a tight test match at Loftus, and it was anything but. Are we in for a tight one here?
Yeah, I think we are. I agree with what Harry's saying, around the concern perhaps we have this week as opposed to last week around a recognized goal kicker, especially if we do get dominance at the scrum. What are we going to do? Are we going to kick it out and back our line out, or are we going to, go for poles and then perhaps miss and then, go back to square one? I think it's going to be really tight. I think both these sides realize that, they really need to come to the party, and this is a big sort of dress rehearsal for the World Cup and a huge confidence booster for them going into the World Cup. Both of us are obviously in quite difficult pools, with favorites in France and Ireland in either of our pools. So I think it's going to be close, and I hope there's obviously been a lot being spoken about the bomb squad. I think those guys could make a difference. I do think, though, I think everyone was surprised last week, and perhaps Harry, being there and you like seeing it live, just how expansive we were. I mean, I was amazed that sort of playing real heads-up rugby, like, running from our 22. So I think that team, almost the way they play, I think it'll be a lot different this week. I think, with Faf, obviously, he's going to kick a lot more, and Willemse will probably also be instructed to kick a lot. Whereas, when Williams comes on, that's the one part of his game that is perhaps lacking, is his kicking. He's just brought on to bring tempo and to just, last week he just expanded on what we're already doing. So perhaps he could bring a bit of a change. But I think our bench is unbelievable. Not just, I think, just with size and strength, and, guys are obviously it's fairly early in the international season. So I think that could be the big difference in a tight game. I think if we do keep it close, we could perhaps win it at the death. But I do think it'll be very close. Both sides had effectively walkovers last week. I can't remember two games so one-sided. I mean, it was Argentina were basically match fixing with their defense. I mean, and the gaps that the All Blacks hit, they won't get against the box with our rush defense. The ball will never get to 13 like it got to Ioane, just basically letting him through. So as Harry said, the defense will be a lot different to what they face from Argentina. And I think, as I said, Etzebeth, I think the boys will rally around him as well. So I think we'll bring a real physical edge to proceedings. And, and they haven't faced it because they just play against Aussies in Super Rugby. So, I can't wait for the game, to be honest.
Excellent. Well, Darren Holiday, hoping we keep it tight for 60 minutes and then take the win. Right, Chris, you've heard what the other two have had to say. What are you going to be shouting for and putting your money on this weekend?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously echo a lot of the sentiments the guys just said there as well, and just thinking of the bets. And yeah, that early lines was gift. It was value. There was total value there. That's where you needed to be on. It's just quite interesting though that the bookie started there when arguably this could even be even lower than the cap is now. So very interesting. I see some forecasts worse up, predicting a big win. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't been that tight between the two games. The last couple of games has been more than a couple of points when it's been close previously. But I think this time around, certainly, it's going to be a very, very close game. I am seeing a close game as well. If we're looking at the cap here, I think, it's probably still a few points, maybe too high. But so in that case, you've got to be on South Africa +7 here. But how I see the game going, I think New Zealand love the spot against the Springboks when we coming in on a high, thinking we are we world beaters. I think New Zealand love it here when we at this place. I think they've got the right team. I think they're going to be totally up for it. So it's going to be a total humdinger, and I think it's going to be a 2-point game either way. But I'm sticking my neck out and saying it's a 2-3 points New Zealand win. And I'm saying that because I really think New Zealand are going to be up for it. And I think the kicker is going to cost us. I think we're going to leave 9-12 points out there, and that's going to cost us the game. Unfortunately, it's probably going to happen. But what also concerns me, I know we've got a full strength side, but I'm a little worried. Willemse, I love Willemse, great at 10, but I do worry he could be anything at 10 on Saturday. I'm worried about Arm's form. He has to come to the party. I don't know if he's been at that level. It's a bit, you definitely hyped up. I hope he brings positive to his game, but just not so sure myself. So I just think we've been here before as a South African fan. We've hammered Oz previously, if I can remember, sometimes in Oz or away, and we come rolling into New Zealand thinking we win, and we get absolutely stacked, hit for 6. So it is a different ball game. New Zealand for sure aren't as strong. I also think this South African team now doesn't fear the All Blacks like we probably used to always inevitably think that we weren't going to win in New Zealand, right? But I think these players have experience. They are winners now, so I don't think they fear the All Blacks. But I just think it's going to be. I do worry the kick in. I do worry about the style of Matthew Rayner as ref as well. I just think this book team needs maybe a game together to probably put in the performance that are going to turn over the All Blacks. But let's see. So I'm calling the books by 2. Capia is a medium to low confidence plus because the +10 was the bet. So New Zealand by 2. If you're going to bet, maybe extend the handicap, get some value on a higher plus still in a multi, and I think you should be fine. I think it's going to be a 3-point game either way.
Yeah. Hey, Brent, I was thinking about 2022.
Yeah, Harry?
These two teams were playing, and it was basically Nelspruit versus Ellis Park. And in the two games, actually, were not that close, exactly as you said. And it came down to the ruck. So if it's quick ball for Aaron Smith on a string with a big midfield and Rieko Ioane always finding a gap somewhere, I think it's trouble. If it's more like Nelspruit and it's ruck sabotage and arm wrestle, then I think it should be a buck win. But you look at the first round, the All Blacks had 2.5 seconds per ruck. Unbelievable. That's literally like no one's even messing with your ruck, and it's training ground moves. That's why the win was more fool's gold over Argentina. I saw a couple of comments online. It was 3.5 seconds against Australia, which is still quick, but at least they were contesting. I don't think that's obviously going to hold this time. There's no way the All Blacks get 2.5 seconds at ruck. And then you have 12 Boks who can pill for a jackal, get over the ball, and you have maybe 10 All Blacks. So I would expect to be a much rougher ruck, and I think it's all going to come down to the ref on the day. What does he see at the ruck? When he points at poles, can the Boks make the kick?
Yeah, Harry, it's interesting that time per ruck. It's a stat I haven't heard before. And you get a lot of stats in rugby thrown around. To me, that's actually one of the most relevant ones that I've seen thrown around. I mean, because speed of ball, we all know. And like you say, a second is not a long time. But the reality is a second is enough time for a defense to set itself. So,
it's huge for realignment. So that was actually from Opta, and the 1 second differential is huge to clear the ruck. But then you have Aaron Smith able to pass all the way to the third channel, and so that's where you get. I mean, you could have Mwanga way out wide, and then you have Rekoyani coming at a good angle. That's why it looks so easy against the Pumas. They were just running in tries. It was nothing.
Yeah, no, the Pumas. Yeah. And I must tell you, I watched at the same place I watched the World Cup final with the same people, and they must think I'm the worst punter in the world because I was on England in the World Cup final, and I was on Australia, and then I was on Argentina. So I had an absolute shocker. But Chris, you got something more on this one?
Yeah. Also, maybe if the guys are chipping out, I think this whole second half / last 20 minutes battle is going to be very interesting because we've become known, obviously, the bomb squad, and the last 20 minutes where New Zealand, Harry, you got your stats, man. Like the last 20 minutes, New Zealand games they've been nowhere. And they picking Takiao and Williams on the bench says a lot. That's a counter bomb squad. That's looking into the 20 minutes big time to bring on the heavy, because I would have had Takiao starting for sure. Obviously, it's first game for Williams, but it's going to be very interesting to see how New Zealand, obviously with Vayu as well, he's not the smallest unit. So they are obviously concerned about that 20 minutes. I'm very curious to see. I mean, our bench looks amazing. But it's going to be very interesting. The last 20 minutes is going to be where it's going to be decided. Like Harry said, if we're not down by 10 points, then we will have a good shot.
Alan, give you any final say on this game before we move on to the next one?
No, I think the rejoinder from both the guys there is spot on. I think that ruck speed for both sides, as you say, there's so many stats. Opta are amazing with the stats you get, then you've got to really sift through a lot of it to see what is actually relevant to a game of rugby and to analyze, and that is key. I mean, when our Oaks come around the corner at speed like that, they're unstoppable almost from slow ball, and when it's quick like that, we have a real edge just in the size and the sort of the violence in our collisions, which perhaps other sides don't relish. But I think the battle on the ground will be good because I think Kane and Kwacha could be up against each other, and I know Kane's he always seems to be under pressure as a shit Richie McCaw, as Peter Mahoney called him, and perhaps he's under pressure after tripping that little RG fan as well. So let's see what chips the Boks come out with this week.
Right, well, we'll move into the next game. Yeah, and I must say that trip was quite something, because I would have expected a rugby tackle or something, not a trip like that there from Kane. Anyway, let's move on to the next game now. Sorry, the banners are a bit slow in coming up. I think it's the old Wi-Fi giving a few problems there. And Alan, let me give you first crack at this one. We got Australia, Argentina. I handicapped this game around about Australia minus 11.5. It opened 6-7, but the money has definitely come a bit for the Aussies here. It's sort of out to 9.5. Where I think the game, I don't think there's going to be much more movement. I think the game will sort of start there. And we've got a points line, Alan, here of 52.5. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think Australia will be, and they have to be better, right? They can't be worse than what they showed us. I think I worry quite a bit for this Argentina side, just in terms of in the Rugby Championship. Perhaps not so much in the World Cup, where they'll be a lot more up to speed. But I think they're playing such catch up against these other three sides at the moment. I really think they're up against it, and I think people. Eddie is obviously a very polarizing figure in the game of rugby, but I think he would have spent a lot of the week and perhaps the flight back sort of really getting into these guys. So I can see them perhaps doing a number on the RGs. Although in saying that, Checker and Eddie are quite good mates, so they'll know each other fairly well and what makes each guy tick. So could be a very interesting game, but I do think the Aussies could beat that line. Yeah.
I see Fareed is in agreement with you there in the live chat. Fareed, for the record, I am too. I do think that Aussies can win this game comfortably, but let's see what the other lads have to say. And Chris, we'll start with you on this game. Anything strong?
Yeah, so I think I capped this game at 10 as well. So perfect, right, the cap's right for me. So I don't think I'm going to get too involved around there. Also agree. I just think, I believe Eddie Jones is going to have Australia ready for this game. They have to bounce back, and I do believe they will be prepared. They seemed a little bit unprepared last week, but this time around, also, it's not to say. Argies have got some guys coming back, but I think Argentina need all their best players on the park if they're going to go. Also had a conversation the other day. I think them not playing, the Jaguars not playing in Super Rugby has now got their form a little bit down. Again, when they're in the competition, RG's rugby was going nice and up, but now I think they're missing the week on, week out intensity against Southern Hemisphere sides. So I think that's impacted them. So I like Aussie. I like the bounce back. I like the team now that he selected, because when I saw Reece Hodge last week, I already fell off my chair. I was laughing so hard. I can't believe that guy made the team. He's not even in the squad this time around. Karibi there is going to make a difference. I think they're also playing at that smaller ground in Sydney, because generally Sydney fields can be quite heavy, but they're playing at that NRR field, which hopefully might be a bit quicker. I think the sun's out. You've got paper out. I think the Aussies, Argentina, the only way they win these games is by bringing you into a dogfight. So they need slow fields. And I remember when they drew the Aussie a few years ago, it was raining. There's no rain around, because that brings them into that dogfight. So I see an Aussie statement here. I see an Aussie win. And I think 52.5 is too low. I think we're going to see the ball flung around. I think I'll have this at about 55, 56. I like the overs as a strong punter. Over 52 is too. I see it has gone up in certain places. I'll still take it over 54.
Oh, well, I see Johannes Esthuizen coming in. He's agreeing on the overs there. And Harry, well, always difficult to go last, because often the guys have said it all. But what is your views on this one? Are you in the Australian camp, or do you think the Argentines are going to push them?
Yeah, and obviously I work a lot with Australian media, and we talk a lot to the Australian guys. I think Eddie made the right adjustment here on personnel. He made mistakes in his first match, but I almost think he wanted to cross off or leave in Vunivalu, and he wanted to see what young Tom Hooper could do, and that didn't work out. So you look at the adjustments he made, he went to the right areas. You have a proper lock combination now. Nick Frost wasn't really up for the level of physicality that he faced. You look at a real proper 12, one of the best 12s in the world, go forward ball all night. You have a really weak midfield for the Pumas, who are missing Higuera's preparation. So I think the midfield is going to be a problem for them all night long. I think Quay Cooper was stung by some of the criticism, and I think he'll air out his Achilles this time. I also think that you have on the bench a proper 6-2 split with Angus Bell coming through, and the Argentina cannot scrum right now. I don't know what happened to one of the best scrumming nations in rugby, but Argentina is not able to scrum. So sometimes you pad the score late from easy entrances by scrum penalties, or you run a maul and you have Arnold, Skelton, Matt Phillips coming back in. He's a hard worker and runs a good maul. I think that's what could do this. Argentina is also without their best flanks, Marcos Kremer, and they're going with a light loose trio. So I actually think a problem here for Argentina. I think these numbers are about right, but a little bit generous to Argentina. And I think that 52.5 is a very attractive number. I would go over that. And I think you're exactly right. There is a embarrassment factor. One thing that can motivate players a lot is embarrassment. That can really make you bounce you back.
Yeah, and on that note, I would think like Argentina were embarrassed last week at home, but then now they go away, so they don't really have to face their own fans. Whereas Australia were embarrassed in South Africa. Now they're in front of their own fans. Now's the time they really have to put their foot on the pedal there. Okay, now I think I like that overs as well. I think I'm also leaning towards that. Anything else, guys, before we wrap up the Rugby Championships and share final thoughts? Nothing on this game from you guys? So we can let's move on to the. So we're going to say cheers now to Harry and Chris, but guys, just to get your thoughts, obviously on the Rugby Championships. What are your sort of strongest fancies, Harry? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think the overall points in the Sydney match is where I'm strongest. And just to be clear, I think the All Blacks are going to win because of the kicking, but I don't think it's going to be by much. I think it's going to be a gripper. So I would flow more to the Australian match to play some money.
Right, so bigger confidence on the overs. And if you do like Harry's pick, and a lot of guys like that, Johan Esthuizen did mention the 1-12 New Zealand. You'll probably get around 16, 17 to 10 on that. And Chris, then your best play on the Rugby Championship. I know we've only got 2 games to pick from, but your best play on the weekend.
Yeah, well, it looks like we're totally aligned, right, with me and Harry and myself. So I agree, the overs is my best bet in the Australia game. Small confidence on South Africa plus, and a medium confidence on a South Africa plus 10.5 odds win double, close to even money. And you should be making some profit there. Let's hope so.
Harry sent me a quick WhatsApp. He said, call me first for the best bet so I can get in before Chris gets into the same number. I'm only kidding. But
it is sweaty when we aligned. I remember with Hendrik, we've been aligned. So let's hope, Harry, let's just...
Henrik, myself, you, Henrik and myself last week were sweating. But we are going to get onto something now where I did okay last week, and that was the under-20s. It got me out of a lot of trouble. But Harry, thanks very much. Great seeing you, man. And yes. Chris, yourself as well. Have a great weekend.
Cheers, guys. Have a great punter weekend.
Excellent.
Go well.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much. Alan, that just leaves you and me now to talk a bit of under-20s rugby. And I must say I'm looking forward to this because last week was a lot better for me than the Rugby Championship. I took a treble on the Sunday, Australia plus. Got a bit lucky there because they played against 14 men and they didn't do particularly well, but they won the game. And then I had South Africa I had Ireland on the minus and France on the minus. Both looked in trouble at stages, but got up. So we've got our final round of games now, and I think we've got some intriguing matchups to come. How's your confidence before I bring the games up? What's your confidence in terms of some of your selections on this week?
Yeah, I think I was, completely aligned with you last week, Brent. Saturday was, as I said to you, in a private message, I've never seen underdogs perform that badly in the Rugby Championship. But then the under-20s kind of went to form in the main games. For the lesser placings, there were a couple of surprises there. Like I didn't see Italy losing, but they didn't feature, and Georgia got pumped really by Wales. So some interesting games in the back end, and I think the thing that needs to be borne in mind in this under-20 comp now is sort of fatigue and things. I mean, the guys have played a number of games, so there's a lot of injuries and things like that. So you need to kind of factor that in now when when you're looking at the sides who they're picking now aren't perhaps as strong as they were in their key pool games, just with injuries and fatigue on those heavy fields. There's some really interesting games coming up, and I think right from the start we backed France hard, and I think they just showed really on Sunday, having a really poor start. They're 17-0 down, and it didn't phase them at all. And they killed them.
Half-time was 24-14, so they had to come back. And I have them to win the tournament, but I also had them to win by more than 11 on the day. At half-time, you're 10 points down. You don't think you've got a chance. But they just overpowered the English in the end.
Yeah, they've just got. Yeah, they're really really good side.
But let's get into the Italy game because we'll talk about them now as well. Here we got Italy minus 15.5 against Japan, and we got a points line of 62.5. Is this the sort of game both teams are just going to throw everything at? Am I right in saying this is for last place? So this is a promotion relegation, or this is to stay up, right?
Yeah, this is that it's the 11th place, but yeah, if you lose, you get relegated out of this section. Then you've got to go play in the sort of the B division. I think this could be points. We've actually, amazingly, we've had 2 great days in Cape Town, and it looks still pretty dry and things for the next few days. So, that will also obviously be a factor in terms of, there won't be sort of a boggy pitch. And I think, I think both these sides will, they kind of will have to give it a go. The relegation thing is huge, and I would back Italy pretty hard. I think they've, you spoke about embarrassment, or someone spoke about embarrassment earlier. I mean, you think Italy could get relegated after having beaten South Africa in the same competition. You wouldn't think those 2 things would necessarily happen in within the space of sort of a month. So I think they're gonna perhaps they will save their best for last. I think they're a bit more battle hardened than Japan. They're used to playing in a Six Nations comp. So they can back up a month's worth of rugby, whereas I think these Japanese under 20 guys this might be a bridge too far for them against an Italy side that really doesn't want to get relegated.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm thinking Italy on the minus, not getting too involved in that particular game. Let's move on to the next one. Wales. I was one of the few on Wales, although I must say I didn't back them with any conviction last week against Georgia. They're playing against Australia, who impressed at times against New Zealand, but I almost got the feeling with Australia last week that when New Zealand got the card, they almost seemed to feel it was almost job done, and quite New Zealand actually, for me, turned in one of their better performances. But the Aussies got the win. They now play against Wales, and we've got a handicap here of 11.5 points, Australia favourites.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I think that's probably about right. I think the Aussies, I remember hearing along the way, the Aussies came into this ranked second. So, it's not sort of a flash in their pan, the results they've managed to produce. So, I mean, apart from getting blown away by Ireland's pack, they've acquitted themselves well. They drew to a strong England side, and I think Wales have really stuttered, apart from holding the All Blacks for one half. But again, that kind of performance is put into perspective when you see what New Zealand have done for the rest of the comp, really. So no, I think I back Australia heavily here, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've been fairly, when I say, for me, Wales haven't been as bad as I almost expected them to be, but I'm very much in the Australia camp here as well. And I might look at something like an Australia points line. I see we've got a total points line there of 59.5, which probably means you've got Australia around about the 35-point mark, somewhere thereabouts. Right, Alan, let's move on to the next game. It's Fiji up against Argentina. Fiji plus 7.5 against the Argentines. 60.5 is the points.
Yeah, sure. This is this is a tough one. I must be honest. I haven't watched too much of the Fiji under 20s. Life is quite short, so I don't have that much bandwidth to get involved in Fiji under 20 that much. But I think again, as I said, the weather's has been good the last little while, and maybe all these guys think after a hard month they might back themselves to chuck the ball around. And I mean, that's the only way Fiji can play, really. That's never going to be, they're never going to drag you into a dogfight or anything like that. So with Fiji, I think you can always look at the total points, really, and go high on that, I think, if anything.
Yeah, I think 60.5, it sounds like a high quote, but if I think of some of these games in really poor conditions, how many points they've been, defense has been a little bit optional, if I must say, at this under 20 World Cup. So I certainly wouldn't. 100%. I certainly think we could get out. Yeah, we could definitely get a high scoring game. Yeah. Right now, let's move on to the third place playoff. South Africa against England. We got a line here. South Africa plus 6.5. Now, I was quite shocked when this one opened up. It opened up at 4.5. And I think I handicapped this game at 11.5. I've got it in the good for the game forum there. So I made England firm favourites for this game. And the line has started shifting in that direction. What are your thoughts here, Alan? Because for me, Baby Box much improved last time out against Ireland, but the golfing class at the end of the day showed. And I mean, I don't like to draw form lines in rugby, but Ireland and England drew, and Ireland ultimately beat the Baby Box fairly convincingly. I'm looking for a comfortable England win.
Yeah, I think so. I think after, if you look at just in sort of a microcosm, at the end of the game, the two the losing captains' interviews, De Villiers was completely dejected, having got pumped in front of a home crowd, whereas Chesham, I mean, if you think about it, they got hammered by France, really. And he was just 100% all in already for the Box. He was like quite upbeat about the performance. By hook or by crook, they led at halftime quite easily. And if they play like that first half, yes, we in big trouble. Because the side hasn't really changed that much either. They have they've brought in Sieberhagen, who plays as lock, but he's a 7. So I suppose that gives us one more line-out option, which God knows we need. But I see Else is still playing hooker. So the thing is, he's got a good all-round game. It's just as a hooker, if you can't throw the ball in, it makes it quite tough. And it doesn't matter. It seems to not matter which props we pick. They all get drilled in the scrums as well. So normally at this level, we just bigger than everyone and we bully them. But this year we just haven't been able to do it, at all against any side, including sort of Italy, Georgia, and what have you. So, yeah, I really quite worry about this game, to be honest. I see a lot of guys have been loving that John Smith, and when he got sort of dropped or out of the 23 for our second game, a lot of people were crying about that. But I don't see that having much of a decent career as a pro rugby player, to be honest. I think he's very, very limited. I don't really see much on the bench that's gonna save us either. So I think this England side are just, at the moment, they're just better than us, really. We'll have fight and we'll stick it in for an hour, I guess. We'll be hard and we'll be, won't give up and things like that. But I think England will win fairly comfortably.
Yeah, I'm with you there very much in the English camp. And let's move on to the next game. And it's not the final yet because I've just got in order that the bookies have got it, which I think is the kickoff order. And here we got Georgia, who disappointed last week. They had a lot of supporters last week against Wales, plus 15.5 against New Zealand. Now, New Zealand, I've been the first to say New Zealand haven't played well, and I've had a bit of a go at them. But I thought they were fairly impressive against Australia, because Australia, they went down a man early, and I mean, they did have probably 60 minutes down to 14. They were down to 13 on a couple of occasions, in fact. And 13, I actually was quite impressed with New Zealand. And for me, I'm looking at this game and I'm thinking, yeah, I think New Zealand might be able to put Georgia away. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, if you look at last week, the sides are they're going in opposite directions now. Georgia started well and have fallen off badly, whereas I think New Zealand have actually only got better, really, after a very poor pool stage. And I think they'll just look to try and, play the ball as wide as possible. They score some good tries, and they all know they don't want to get into a dogfight with these Georgians. They're not going to try and maul and things like that. So, it's going to be channel one ball from scrums, and they're going to be looking to move this team of 25, 28-year-olds. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And I think just based on that total points line, New Zealand points probably around about the 38.5 mark. I think I'll be looking for an overs play on New Zealand. Yeah, I think they're going to score plenty of points on this one. Before we go into the last game, we'll just pop in. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is a bit slow, so there's like a gap from when I press something to when it comes up. But just to have a look at some of the comments. Fareed saying Georgia has no backline, and 2M saying Wales proved you right, Fareed. Georgia on 8-man team with no backline, so he's in agreement there. And Walter reckons there's going to be a 30-point difference, New Zealand 60 plus. So Walter, you and I very much singing off the same hymn sheet there. Right, let's get into the final game then, Alan. And this is the final, of course. This handicap has also moved quite a bit during the week. Look, let me first of all say I think the best two teams are in the final. I've got absolutely no doubt about that. I really rate this Irish side.
100%.
And I know they got the Grand Slam in the Six Nations. But I was very surprised when there was -4.5 Ireland available initially. And if I wasn't so big on France to win the darn thing, I would have climbed into that a bit more. But that handicap has shifted out now. It's gone to 8.5. I think I actually made it 12.5 when I handicapped this game. So I can still see this potentially moving out further. And we've got a points line of 57.5. What do you think of this one? Are France going to do the business for us?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind with regards to the result. Perhaps a bit tentative around that spread there on those points. I think, as I say, France should win. But I think this Irish side still running also on a lot of emotion after that chap's father died in that terrible accident in Cape Town. So I think it will be a very good game because, as you say, these are clearly the best two teams. But I think France are deadly, and they're actually able to take it away towards the end. Just the interplay between their loose forwards and their backs is it's incredible, really. And they pack at the maul. I think it should be a hell of a battle up front because the Irish pack they really went to town in the maul against when they could see the Aussies weren't up too much up front. So I think that could be a fierce battle. But I think the kicking game could be also very important. Two very good 9s and 10s. I think it might be closer than many expect. But I think I would go. Perhaps I would in this line maybe unders on the points there, Brent. I think it could be quite a cagey game for the first bit. Obviously being a final. And I think guys will look to take the points when they're on offer.
Yeah, agreed. Take the 3 points. Yeah, I'm also looking at that points line and thinking it might be unders. I just get nervous backing unders with this French team because they can score from anywhere. And the way I read that England game is England played a brilliant sort of opening half against France. And at the end of the day, France, they've just got too much quality and too much size and power in that side. And eventually they just get on top of you. And I think the same thing's going to happen against Ireland, is that France are going to get on top and kick away to win comfortably. We're going to get Alan's best bets now. Just a reminder that my best bets newsletter will be going out tomorrow. I didn't have a good week last week. I can tell you I was on the Australians there. I was sort of torn between Australia and then Ireland on the handicap against South Africa. And unfortunately, I chose the wrong one for the newsletter. Let's hope I get it right tomorrow. You can get a link down in the description box to sign up for that. And by the way, Alan, I put your link there to your blog as well down in the description box. So you can catch Alan's blog. He writes on schoolboy rugby there. But Al, let's get into the best bets from your side. You can cover it across the board, Rugby Championships and anything you fancy, particularly strong in the under-20s.
Yes, I think one for each, Brent. I think in the Rugby Championship, high on go overs on the total points in the Oz game. I think Oz could come good there, and I think they'll look to be quite expansive against what they will see as quite a weak Argentina side. I get very nervous about putting money on an SA All Black game just because of my sort of unbridled hatred for the All Blacks. So I'll rather just try and enjoy that game at 9 a.m. in Franschhoek. And then in the under-20s, I think go high on the All Blacks points. I think whatever that spread is, I think this could be their day and they could carve Georgia.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I agree with you. For Riedko and Fiji on the board, Italy and New Zealand on the minus. This is bringing Johannes treble back up there. He goes New Zealand under 20 minus 14.5. Oz over 52.5. Very much in agreement with the panel there. And Fiji match over 60.5. And that's at just shy of 6-1. And then I want to bring up Shane's comment here. Ons Jabeur in the Wimbledon women's final go to Tunisia. Yes, I had a little bit of her today at 13-10 against Sabalenka. I didn't get to watch the game, but great to see her win. Of course, there's also Tour de France this weekend, so if you subscribe to this channel, you'll get notified when my previews go up for that. But enjoyed that Wimbledon. So plenty to bet on this weekend, plenty of sport. And Alan, anything else that stands out for you on the weekend? We got only the Ashes only starts next week. Anything else that you're going to be watching this weekend?
I'm going to save all my energy for the All Blacks game, and then hopefully we get a win there, and then we can have a couple of weeks looking forward to hopefully a clincher against Argentina at Ellis Park.
Excellent. Yeah, that should be a good one. Well, thanks a lot, Alan, for joining me. I'm looking certainly forward to a great day of sport tomorrow, because we got all the rugby tomorrow, and I've got the Tour de France, and of course we got the Wimbledon men's semi-finals as well. What an absolute treat. Thanks to all the guys on the live chat. Your contributions always appreciated, and certainly does help make the show. Good punting, everyone. Let's hit those bookmakers hard.